How can we know what God expects of us if we don't study the Torah? That's a question I wouldn't have known to ask when I was growing up. Now I know that the Hebrew word Torah is the law, instructions, and commandments of God found in the Old Testament, and especially in the 5 books of Moses. I also know that the New Testament authors used the Greek word for law when they referenced the Torah, and that the Torah was the starting point for their writings. Paul makes that clear in passages like this. What shall we say then? Is the Torah sin? May it never be. On the contrary, I would not have known sin except through the Torah. For I would not have known about coveting if the Torah had not said, "You shall not covet." But sin, taking an opportunity, worked in me through the commandment all kinds of coveting. For apart from the Torah, sin is dead. So the law, the Torah, not only tells us what sin is, but convicts us of sin. Well, that's the plain sense of Paul's comment. If there is no standard of conduct, then anything goes. There can never be punishment for wrongdoing because there's no definition of wrongdoing. Neither can there be commendation or reward for doing right because there's no definition of righteousness. We go straight back to the Garden of Eden, where our first ancestors decided to reject the Creator's standards and become their own judges of what is right and wrong. Their descendants followed that example and created a civilization with no universal standards of right conduct. Such a society becomes filled with violence because there's no king or judge to define right conduct. Everyone does what is right in his or her eyes, which includes enforcing their definition of what is right by all means at their disposal. The only remedy is to acknowledge our Creator and return to His definition of right and wrong. This is why the 10 Commandments are still the universal standard of conduct for Christians and Jews, and indeed for all humanity. We can get to every aspect of human interaction through those authoritative words of God. Well, let's start with the commandment about not coveting our neighbor's house, wife, servants, livestock, or anything of his. To covet means to desire something in the sense of greedily wanting it. Appreciating or desiring a thing isn't necessarily wrong, but distinguishing appreciation from covetousness can be complicated. For instance, I once knew a U.S. Navy midshipman whose knowledge of Japanese won him a training cruise with the Japanese Navy. On the day he reported to the ship, he was taken to meet the captain. On the captain's desk was a large, beautifully bound Japanese-English dictionary. My friend had never seen a dictionary quite like that, and he casually mentioned his admiration of the book. When my friend returned to his cabin that evening, he was surprised to find the captain's dictionary on his bunk. That's when he realized he had made a cultural error. His admiration of the dictionary had placed the Japanese captain under an obligation to give the book to his American guest. It was a point of honor to make such a gift, even at great sacrifice. Once the gift was given, my friend had no choice but to accept it, because a refusal would have been an even greater breach of honor. Was my friend guilty of covetousness? No, he was merely ignorant of Japanese culture. Had he truly coveted the captain's dictionary, he might have searched for a way to acquire it by devious means. He could have exploited the Japanese emphasis on honor and shamed the captain into giving him the book. A compliment such as the one he had innocently made would have done the trick. Or he could have spread a rumor that soiled the captain's honor in such a way that only a gift of the coveted dictionary would remove the stain. In that case, my friend would have been guilty not only of covetousness, but also of bearing false witness and stealing. In other circumstances, covetousness could lead to adultery and murder. That's what happened to King David when he saw Bathsheba, his neighbor's wife, bathing on her rooftop one hot summer's night. If we want something badly enough, we end up focused on that above all else. That's why we must guard our hearts. As Messiah Yeshua told us, the sinful act starts with the sinful thought. A major consequence of these sinful acts is that they bring shame on our parents. Assuming, of course, that our parents expect us to live within the bounds of culturally appropriate, lawful conduct. There are those parents, sadly, who have no such expectations of their children because they never had such expectations established for themselves. When personal satisfaction becomes the goal, the family breaks down and values become skewed. Parents become little more than men who have sired children and women who have birthed them, not knowing how to model righteousness nor even how to remain together for long. Such parents simply perpetuate a cycle of valueless selfishness. Where's the honor in that? Well, that's not what our Creator intended. When He told us to honor our fathers and mothers, He established the basic building blocks for a civilization based on honor. My Navy friend learned something of that from his Japanese experience. It's not simply a matter of being nice to our parents, but of upholding the honor of our fathers and mothers from ages past. We are linked through time, all the way back to Adam and Eve. Yet, how can we honor our parents if we don't know who they are? This is the war waged against us from the beginning. It's an identity issue. If we don't know who we are and whose we are, then we have little chance of growing into the honorable values of our ancestors and our ancestors' God. And that gets to the commandments about our relationship with God. He specifies the time each week when He wants to meet with us to renew and deepen our intimate relationship. It helps if we know and honor our parents, keeping their rules and solemn appointments, because then we have a model for meeting with our heavenly parent. When we honor them by sanctifying the name of our family, we learn to do the same with our Heavenly Father's name. It's not simply a matter of polite speech to avoid taking God's name in vain, but righteous conduct governed by righteous thoughts, so that we bring honor and not shame to our Heavenly Father and His house. And that brings us back to the beginning, which is our Creator. If the world has any regard for His 10 words, it is as suggestions for civilized behavior, which we are free to bend or honor in the breach. That's why our Father's household is different from the world. The 10 words are more than suggestions for us, and they are more than rules of conduct. They're the dictionary for a lifelong dialogue with our Creator that leads not only to personal redemption, but to an honorable end for us all.